Welcome to Salesology, conversations with sales leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. When you're ready to transform your sales for today's transforming market, we've got you covered with your host, the queen of cold calling and founder of Salesology, award-winning author, speaker, sales trainer, and coach, Wendy Weiss.
Hi, welcome to Salesology, conversations with sales leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. And I'm your host, Wendy Weiss. I am the founder of Salesology and creator of the Salesology prospecting method. And I'm also known as the queen of cold calling. And today, my very special guest is Bill Canady, and he is the CEO of both OTC Industrial Technologies and Arrowhead Engineered Products. And Bill has over 30 years of experience as a global business executive in a variety of industries and markets focused on industrial and consumer products and services. And as a leader, he concentrates on aligning with key stakeholders to set a clear and compelling vision that will rally an organization to drive growth, control costs, and increase profitability. One of the keys to his success is that he develops strong leaders and management teams, and he establishes deep relationships. So Bill is the CEO of both OTC Industrial Technologies and Arrowhead Engineered Products. OTC is an industrial distribution company located in Columbus, Ohio. That has $1 billion in sales with 1,900 plus employees and over 60 sales and distribution offices in 40 states. And he's grown OTC revenue by more than 43% and earnings over 78%. Arrowhead Engineered Products is a leading supplier of non-discretionary, mission-critical aftermarket replacement parts for a wide variety of motorized vehicles and equipment, headquartered in Blaine, Minnesota, and has $1.5 billion in sales with 3,600 plus employees, and they sell in over 50 countries. So welcome, Bill.
Well, Wendy, it's great to be here today, and that was a magnificent introduction. So yeah, I have to have you as my PR person going forward. What a gift!
What a gift! Thank them for me. So let's begin at the beginning, which is where I like to begin. How did you end up being the CEO of not one but two different companies?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's one I get more than anything else, and the reward for doing a good job is to, doing good work is to get more work. And so both companies are owned by private equity, and they happen to be owned by the same firm, which I work for, a company called Genstar. And Genstar is just a magnificent firm located out in San Francisco, and they own a variety of companies. I was running OTC. They had some issues they wanted some help with, and I volunteered to help. So that was how I got in both of them.
Okay. And so give me the story before that. How did you end up being a CEO of anything at all? You were a little boy. You said, I want to grow up and be a CEO. And then what happened?
Yeah, it's like you were there. I mean, that's exactly what happened. So, no, honestly, like I grew up in Eastern North Carolina. We were absolutely dirt poor. I tell people all the time, I grew up at the end of a dead end dirt road in a double wide trailer. And my ticket off the farm was to join the Navy. So I did that, got out of high school, joined the Navy, wound up moving to Chicago, met my wife there, and went and got my school. I was the classic little older student, and I got my undergrad at Elmhurst and my graduate at University of Chicago. And that really kind of set me on the path. I started as a sales guy, got into that, started doing deals, and one thing led to the other. And about halfway through my career, I had gotten promoted as operating companies and got to be really good at running businesses, or at least I thought I was good. They seemed to like me at it, and I'd had a little deal experience. At that point, for each of us, it becomes kind of a decision. Like, what do you want to do? And for some people, they like where they are and they're comfortable. And I certainly was in a great spot. And some people are strivers, and I fall into the striver category. Who knows why? Probably from what I came from, and I always feel like there's more. And I was blessed to marry a wonderful woman and who would support me through it all. And so I just kept raising my hand and asking for more and more. Moved a lot, got, kept going up in the career. And then at about 10 years ago, I got my first chance to be a president and then a CEO and things like that. So it's just, you take that next step. You're not sure how, what that's going to look like. And sometimes it works out better. Sometimes it don't. But if the incumbent piece is, you have to take a bet on yourself. You have to be willing to raise your hand. And I don't care if that's taking you from being a salesman to a sales manager, from an operations to operation. You have to keep raising your hand. And if you do a good job, you're going to find you'll get exactly where you want.
Okay. Well, that's so interesting to me, because one of the things that I push my clients to do, I'm always telling them they have to get out of their comfort zone. They have to try something new. And what is it you think that, one, keeps people from being able to do that? And two, how were you able to do that? Because that is a hard thing for a lot of people to do.
Yeah, no, I think it's funny. I was just on a phone call with a guy I've known for about 20 years. He'd call me up and he was looking for some advice on how to structure his sales team, right, around how commissions are paid. And the first time I met him, he was actually higher than me. He was running a small business, about $100 million. I was a vice president of sales at the time. And through the years, as we've kept growing and doing things in our career, today he's still running a business about $100 million, and I'm CEO of a couple of companies, right? Like, what's the difference? It's not smart. It's not being lazy. It's not being gifted. It's none of that stuff, right? It's willingness to put yourself out there and do what it takes. No matter which decision you make, right, you get a set of problems. You just need to pick which set of problems you'd rather wrestle with, right? One of my dear friends, I've known him over 20 years, was probably the most gifted person I knew. He lived in the hills of Pennsylvania, and he was a salesperson. But his family was from that area, and there's really no industry in that area. And he had time and again opportunities to move up, right? Go be a manager, and he turned every one of them down. And for him, it was the absolute right reasons, right? For me, you look back on my career, I've moved 9 different states, right? All across the country. We started out. I said in Eastern North Carolina, but my career really started around Chicago. And we've lived in Wisconsin, we lived in Iowa, California, Indiana, Ohio, Florida. I mean, it goes on and on. So my poor family. But because I wanted it, and I wanted that next piece, and I got really lucky with my family, I kept putting myself out there. I kept striving for that next piece. Now, my career did outstanding, but my family sure paid a heavy price to move. My kids have been in, 9 different schools. Now, it worked out okay. One of them's a dentist today. Another one's in marketing, and they're doing just super successful. I have a wonderful grandchild, Colin. If you're listening, you little 2-year-old person, I love you so much. So it's worked out. But, again, I never got to coach Little League. I didn't make all the basketball games. I was in Asia or Europe or Iowa, right? Wherever the action was happening for my career.
Okay. So I'm going to switch gears for a moment, because I also want to know, I'm curious about this. You spent some time in the Navy. How much time did you spend in the Navy, actually?
3 years,
3
right?
years.
I just did a basic enlistment, joined up. My mom drove me down, and I was 18 years old at the recruiting station, raised my right hand, and away I went, right? So I was very lucky. I was on USS Fort Fisher, stationed in San Diego.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And so I'm curious, what did being in the Navy teach you about business and also sales?
It's so interesting. When I was in the Navy, I absolutely hated it, right? They told you what to do. You had to get up and do, I'm just everything you didn't want to do as an 18-year-old. But it really made a man out of me. It showed me I could live through anything. They took me out of a situation on a farm, which is a great place to be. Don't get me wrong. But all of a sudden, you're in the big world and you've got to stand or fall on your own. But the thing the Navy does, and people, when you come out of high school, they typically do one of 3 things. One of them is they either go to college, they go to the military, or they go get a job. Right? I'm sure there's other things they can do, but those are the typical things. What college does and what the military does is it gives you a safety net. right? It gives you a place to go out and be on your own, but you're not really on your own. So in the Navy, no matter what I did, I got 4 meals a day. Actually, you have a midnight one they call mid-rats, but you get 4 squares a day, roof over your head, clothing, and all that. You just had to do your job, right? You had to keep yourself out of trouble, listen to what they said, and do the best you could, and you're going to be successful. It's like that old book, right? Everything I learned in kindergarten. That's what the service is about. It makes you go stand up, be adult, but it gives you a place to do it in that if it goes poorly, you're going to be fine, right? You still have a ship to sleep on or a barracks to sleep in. And people need that. We all need that transition time. So what the Navy did to me was a couple of things. One, it showed me there was a giant world outside of the farm I grew up on. The second one, it made me find something inside of myself that no matter how much people were yelling at me and telling me to do push-ups and all that, I could do it, right? And I could take it. And I learned I could take it. And it also gave me pride in myself and pride in my country. To this day, it drives me nuts when I see someone disrespect this country. I've been all over the world, and this is an amazing place to be. But when you do something like that, even if you don't understand it at the time, you realize as you grow older what a gift it was to be part of something like that. And so I will always be grateful for it, and it absolutely made me who I am today.
Okay. So I know you have 2 books. You have one book that we're going to talk about and another one that's coming out next year that we're also going to talk about. So tell us about your books.
Yeah, it's funny. I was my first book I put out in February will be a year. It's done remarkably well. It's been a bestseller. It's called the 80/20 CEO, and it's really targeted at the leadership of a company and what you do to come in and get control of a business. I've ran successful companies. I've ran turnarounds. This book is, no matter which one you're doing, as the leader, it talks about what your role is, your job, and your teams, and what you have to go through to get command and control of that business. And then the second part, it tells you the tool sets. The next book that's coming out, which will be out in April, and it's published by Wiley, is called From Panic to Profit. And it's really the 2-year journey or the journey, if you will, of taking a company, getting that command and control, and what you live through as you do it, right? The type of people you need, how you get around it. And it's not targeted at the CEO and their team. It's just going through kind of a turnaround, and it talks about how you position yourself and that business for success, right? So those are the books, and hopefully I'll have another one coming out after that, and maybe I'll get lucky and keep getting them published. But it's been a really wonderful journey, and it's opened up so many doors, and I met so many wonderful people like yourself, Wendy, because of putting myself out there, right? So you put yourself out there, great things happen. Not all of them is maybe what you expected. Some are better than others, but this is how you keep advancing things, and I'm just blessed to have these.
Okay. And I actually wanted to ask you about leadership because as I was introducing you and reading your bio, and I know in my preparation for this interview, I kept reading about how you know how to develop strong leaders. And I'm curious, how do you do that? Like, what are the steps, or give us some do's and don'ts in terms of developing, if you're, the owner, the CEO, the president of a company, and you really want to develop a strong team and lead a strong leadership team. How do you do it?
It's so interesting. I would say it is very straightforward, but not necessarily easy, right? And I find it to be true in every case. So the first is, as the CEO, our job, your job, is to set the goal, right? And that goal, depending on where you are, may be financial, it may be a value, it's whatever it is. Your team underneath you, their job is to figure out the strategy to go achieve that goal, right? And this is critical, right? And so what happens many times as a leader, and I don't care if you're a sales leader, an operations leader, or you run the whole show, we sometimes get caught up in thinking we're the only ones with the answer, or we don't trust our team, or maybe we just haven't built the team we wanted yet, so we're going to go do it ourselves. You won't develop anyone in that. In fact, you'll be a micromanager, and you'll be certainly irritating, and you become a blocker. You hold people back. But if you set the clear destination, this is where we're going, and you surround yourself with people who are self-driven, right? You don't need to manage them at all. You tell them, this is where we're going. Figure out how to go do that, and they will get there. And in doing so, they develop all the skills and all the confidence it takes to lead whatever it is, be it a small sales group, be it a company that's worldwide in it, because all of a sudden their hands are on the controls. They're not waiting for you, Wendy, to tell them go do X or go do Y. You've already told them this is where you're going. Now you figure out how to get there. People love it. People love it because they start, all of a sudden they can see themselves developing. They can develop the people around them. They want to be a part of that winning team, and they need to have an important role on it. That's how you do it.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is that you need to let go. Once you've figured out whatever that goal is, you've got to let go.
You do. Now, letting go is an interesting thing. It's kind of like, and not to say it's a parent-child relationship, but I'm going to use a parent-child because I'm a parent and have children, right? You can't do your kids' homework for them. They're not going to learn anything. You tell your kid, whatever it is, whatever you think good looks like, but we're going to say we want our child to get an A. You have to get an A. It's in math. By the way, I know how to do math, so I'll help you with it, but you're going to do it. You're the one that's going to go to class. You're the one that's going to get yourself prepared. You got to do your homework and all that. I, as the parent, I'm going to sit in judgment. I'm going to let you know that's good enough or it's not. We're going to have regular conversations, sometimes daily, sometimes weekly, it's whatever is appropriate. So you can't disengage, but you go from being someone who's actually doing and thinking about when I'm going to do the homework to someone saying, no, I have expectations for you. We're going to monitor and measure those expectations and whatever's appropriate, not intrusively. And if things go bad, they get a little extra help, right? Things go good, it's not such a big deal. But as that role, it's the same thing in running a business. It's the same thing in running a sales group. You go out and you go, look, we know our goal. Many times our goals are given to us by someone else, be it the board, be it the CEO, be it the sales manager. You know the goal. Our job is to figure out how to go accomplish that. Sometimes we need tools. Sometimes we need help. Sometimes we need training, like salesology, right? I love your tagline, right? Making cold calls. One of the most challenging things in the world. That phone weighs 1,000,000 pounds. People just can't seem to pick it up. But if you can show them how to pick it up, and then you put a situation where they have to pick it up, they learn to pick it up. They find it's not that big of a deal, right? It's not that hard. You just have to get through it. Same thing in any role we have. Our job as a leader, as a coach, as really a mentor to them, is put them in the role not to pick that phone up for them, but to make sure they're picking up. And when they do, they know how to go do the role.
Absolutely. And I will share with our audience today that nobody has ever died from picking up the phone and making a cold call. Not one death has happened on my watch.
But they sure think so before they do it.
They do. They sure do. So we're going to pause now for a word from our sponsor. And when we come back, I want to hold Bill's feet to the fire. I want to find out about your profitable growth operating system, because that is such a tantalizing name. So more on that in just a moment. But now a word from our sponsor, the Salesology Vault. Just about every guest that I have interviewed on the Salesology Conversations with Sales Leaders podcast has had a free gift for our listeners, and that includes my special guest today, Bill Canady. So what we've done is we've taken all of those gifts and we put them all in one place just for you. We call it the Salesology Vault, and it's packed full of free gifts from sales leaders, sales experts, marketing gurus, revenue generation experts, and we add another gift every single week. We release a podcast every Monday, and when we do, we add a gift. So you can log in as often as you'd like. You can download as many gifts as you'd like. It's all free. So the link to the Salesology Vault is in the show notes. And as soon as you finish listening to this podcast, go to the show notes, click on the link, download your gifts. You'll be glad you did. And we are back with my special guest, Bill Canady. He is the CEO of both OTC Industrial Technologies and Arrowhead Engineered Products. So welcome back, Bill.
Hey, it's great to be back. Thank you again for having me.
Yeah. So The title of your system, your profitable growth operating system, such a tantalizing name. What is it?
Well, yeah, it's kind of funny. We all want growth, but it needs to be profitable, right? I ran lots of sales programs, and we went out and sold a boatload of stuff and didn't make any money. So we put them both together, and that's really the title of it. But it's the toolbox, right? And if you think about it, the example I like to use is we're all carpenters, and all carpenters more or less use the same tools, right? We use hammers and drills and saws and on, you name it. But we need to know what we're building. And are we building a house or a condo, a mansion in the sky? I mean, there's all sorts of things. So by knowing that, by having a blueprint, we use these skills that both innate to us, the things that have trained us, be it salesology or some other type of program they've used, right? We need to know where we're going to go with that. And that was what PGOS was really all about. It was, what are the fundamental tools I need if I'm going to grow this business? Because there's not one thing, right? It's everything together building on it. We need people. We need processes. We need technology. We're going to need leads for the salesman to call with, right? They're going to need how to pick up the phone. But guess what? We're going to sell some product. Someone's got to manufacture that product, and it's got to get delivered, and it goes on and on and on with it. So the profitable growth operating system really looks at it from 5 fundamental tool sets. And it's from strategy and segmentation, or 80-20. So strategy is all about how I'm going to get there and how I'm going to grow this. This is really about growth and how we get there. Segmentation is the 80-20. That's the data. It tells you where the money's being made at. Doesn't tell you what your strategy should be. It just tells you what's possible for it. Talent, right? You got to have great people. If you don't have great people, nothing works. You got to look after those people. So it's not just recruiting them, but it's retaining them and training them, things like that. You get into a lot of that yourself, right? It's M&A, or mergers and acquisitions. Particularly given in a lot of industries folks are in, you can only grow at a certain rate. But if you're looking to grow and really, really get a big return on it, you're going to leverage yourself up, and that's typically buying some other companies. But you can't just buy anything, right? You got to make sure the deal works, it fits with you, and you got to pay a fair price with it. So it goes on and on and on with it. The last one's lean. So that's really about efficiency, right? So those are the 5 core tools with it that you have. And what our profitable growth operating system, it talks about those tools. It talks about how to approach them. But most importantly, it really looks at it through not becoming an expert in lean or any one of them. It's looking at through the lens of your business, where you're going and how you apply these tools. So we're back to being a carpenter. You don't have to be an expert in a saw to use a saw, but you need one at certain times. It makes your job easier with it. And that was really the goal of the profitable growth operating system.
Okay, so what are some of the mistakes or missteps, let's say, that business owners or CEOs make when they're looking at profitability? They want to grow, and they don't want to sell a whole bunch of stuff and not make any money doing it. So what are some of the mistakes? Give me some do's and don'ts. What are some of the mistakes that business owners, CEOs make in this area?
Well, it's an interesting point. Most of it comes around wherever the business is in their journey and unable to take and pivot themselves to what's coming next. So let's take it from a startup. So you've got an individual, they're doing quite well for themselves, right? And they're running a business, and they're an army of one. Maybe they have an assistant. They probably have a few contractors, people who help them come in and do it, things like that. And when they're doing that, what happens is they typically early on to grow, they'll take any job, right? They take any job that comes, if it's in their wheelhouse or even if it's not. I'll give you an example. So go back to the carpenter. You find out you're really good at doing remodeling. The people like you, and they go, "Hey, I'd like to build a house." You go, "I'll build a house. For sure, I'll build a house." Well, so they build the house. It's kind of near what they're doing, but it's not quite the same. And then the person says, "Well, now I need a house. I need a driveway go into it." And they go, "Well, I'll put the driveway in for you." And it goes on and on. And guess what? They've never laid asphalt. They don't have a clue how to get, the water hooked up and on and on. And they get outside of their core. Well, so you started out, you were really good at the carpenter. You've got all these things going on, but you're so busy at doing things that you're not good at. To take the next step, you now have to start getting rid of the things that you're not good at. You have to say no to things. It is the hardest thing people to do, right? Because they're going, wait a minute, I got myself to this far. I need to grow. And you're telling me I got to get rid of something? Well, for sure. And you have to figure out the thing that you want to get rid of, the things that you're not good at. And for the proxy that we use is simply, where am I making money and where am I not making money? So once they kind of figure that out and everything, they start exiting it, right? And now their business, and this allows them to grow to the next bigger piece of it. And they grow on, and this business again goes through another cycle. Well, this continues going on and repeating itself, right? They grow up, they max out, and in order to take and go to the next piece, they have to make another decision. I'm going to become some expert in a smaller piece of my business. Most entrepreneurs, most middle levels, most smaller or lower middle market, that journey is probably the hardest thing they're ever going to do, because you start out as an army of one. In order to take the next thing, you got to hire people. You got to give up control. You're going to have people out there representing your company, spending your money, and they may not be as good as you. How do you do all these things? And that becomes the mystery that a lot of folks cannot get past. And that's where people struggle at.
Absolutely. It's so interesting to me to hear you describing this. Step one is understand what your core is about. Because when we're working with clients, we teach business development, we teach prospecting. It is so hard to get people to understand that describe an ideal prospect. The answer is not everybody.
Nope.
And that's where we always start.
That's right.
And it is so hard to just in this much more narrow context, get our clients to just like narrow it down. So I could see that for a business owner doing all these different things, thinking they're making money, that could be really difficult.
It's so hard. An example I have is about 25 years ago. I was leading product management, and I needed to hire marketers to help me with some brand development and advertising. So I wound up hiring these two companies. And so one of them, it was excellent, a guy in New York City, and it was himself, and he had about 12 people who supported him, and they did magnificent work, right? The other one comes in, I hire him. They had slightly different pieces. I needed slightly different things. He was the owner, as well as the first guy's name was John. The second guy is the owner. He comes in, and what he really does is he pitches the business, wins it, and he handed it off to a project manager, and they ran it, right? So fast forward 25 years later, John's business is doing great. It's still him and about a dozen people, and he's billing out probably $12 million a year. The other guy grew his business about $250 million and sold it. And he did it in about 10 years. He just kept replicating it over and over again. So what he really focused on was he was outstanding at closing in industrial product companies, and he knew how to hire people who could get that work done. So he didn't do any advertising, any of that stuff anymore himself. He was pitch and close, right? And his team did all the work. So why did one get so big and successful? The other guy's still successful. Don't get me wrong. He's had a great career, but he's really running the same processes that he's been running 25 years ago, and his business hasn't grown at all. Well, that's where a lot of our folks are at, right? They're really good at being a carpenter or selling a product or whatever it is, but they can't figure out how to replicate themselves. They can't figure out what they're really good at, what that core is. Until they're willing to put themselves out there, take a chance, which feels really risky, they're going to be hung in it. And over time, it means you just don't grow.
Sigh. But I know you have at least part of the answer because you have a gift for our listeners. So please share some details about your gift.
Yeah, absolutely. So, our gift is a chapter out of my last book, The 80/20 CEO. You can go to our website and do it. It's billcanady.com. It'll be in the show notes, and so you don't need to write that down. But the 80/20 CEO is really about three things, and the most important of it is it's 100 days. It's called, the subtitle is 100 days to get command and control of your business, right? And it's really about where are you, and you look at the data, and once you understand that data, you now know where to place your bet. So it's not subjective. It's not my opinion. It's just the data, and it's your data, right? And it's data that anyone can run. And once you know who your best customers are and your best products are, because that's where you make your money, go do more of that. And once you know where you're not making money, quit doing that. It's quite simple. This book walks you through how to look at it and how to approach it and how to think about it. Ultimately, it's going to be in your hands. But the good news is it's your data. It's just waiting for you to make those decisions.
Okay. And so the link to download the chapter from Bill's book, I know everybody is going to want to get this. So go to the show notes. As soon as you finish listening to this podcast, go to the show notes, click on the link. And Bill, also, people want to connect with you. How can they do that?
Well, like most people, I'm on social media. I'm not very good at it. Probably the one I do the most is LinkedIn. But I'm also on Instagram and Facebook. And probably the second one that if you want to learn more about some of the stuff is YouTube. You can go there. A lot of little videos there. But the best place for me is my website. It's just my name.com. So it's billcanady.com. And it's spelled Billcanady. So it's a little different last name. Recommend you go on there. There's a way to contact me. Certainly, I can help you if I can. I tend to respond to every one of them I get. And where we can help you, glad to do it.
Okay. And in case you didn't have a chance to jot down Bill's website, it's okay because we're putting that in the show notes. So as soon as you finish listening to this podcast, to connect with Bill, go to the show notes, click on the link to his website, click on his LinkedIn. That's where I met Bill. And Bill will respond. He promises to do so. And one more promise from you, Bill. Would you put your hand over your heart? Because this has just been a great interview. And would you promise me that you'll come back again so we can keep talking, perhaps when your new book comes out next year?
Absolutely, Wendy. Be delighted to do it. Wonderful getting to know you and about your process. I've certainly learned a lot from you. Anything I can do to help, you can count on me.
Okay. Well, thank you. So, and thank you, my audience. You've been listening to Salesology Conversations with Sales Leaders with my special guest, Bill Canady, who is the CEO of both OTC Industrial Technologies and Arrowhead Engineered Products. And if you found value in listening to today's podcast, then please think about one business owner, one sales leader, one entrepreneur, one CEO, somebody that you know that you think might also find value in listening to this podcast. And please do share the link with them. And until we meet again, visualize yourself surrounded by cash, big bills.
You've been listening to Salesology, Conversations with Sales Leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. Be sure to follow so that you don't miss a single episode. And while you're at it, please leave a rating and review and be sure to share it with your friends. Tune in every week for more exciting insights and wisdom on transforming sales. And until next time, visualize yourself surrounded by cash, very large bills.